is quite well known for her expertise in many aspects, especially how to have good governance, including in West Java provincial government. So to make conversation or discussion more fruitful, I hand over this meeting to Reni Suarso directly. The time is yours, Bu Reni.
Thank you, Pak Dodit. Bit different with the scenario, because I thought I will open and then I will invite you to speak, but then because you already opened the discussion, so I will just following your instructions. So ladies and gentlemen and all the distinguished participants, particularly there is Ibu Prima, Ibu Kadis Delha, Pak Dodit, as head of Government and Regional Autonomy Bureau, the West Java Province, and also Ibu Ani Widiani, head of Corporation Divisions, and also the representative from others, SKPD, the West Java Government. Good afternoon, Shalom, Salam Sejahtera, Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for attending this important, I believe this is a periodic discussions ya Pak Dodit ya. And very appreciate that you and the Bureau already initiated and organized the reliable and actual discussions. I think what a good initiative talking about more about the Citarum problems. So today's agenda is the COP26 for Global Sustainable Development Agenda. And as explained from Pak Dodit, the discussions will be talking about COP26, but relating to Citarum lesson learned. And then we try to prepare probably the key point for Pak Gubernur, Pak Ridwan Kamil, when he delivered his speech on the COP26. I got the information that he will discuss about the implementations of integrated waste management through integrated approach from upstream to downstream, a lesson learned from Citarum River Rehabilitation Program. And one thing I would like to say that because the organizer told me that today the discussions will be conducted fully in English and there's no translator. So the presenter will speak in English and answer and questions also in English. To short the time, I will call Professor Diego Ramres Lavring, Professor Tony Wong, and Dr. Jane Holden to speak. But I also informed that three of them will discuss on the same subject, the called Citarum Revitalization Demonstration Project, Implementation of Integrated Waste Management. I think this work very heavy and large, revitalize a river, So this is the work of multi-stakeholders with interdisciplinary approach. So this is like an output of our long discussions and long work between Monash and University of Indonesia, but also with other partners, not only us, but also for sure West Java government, and also other universities like ITB, IPB, UPI, and also UNPAD. So many people chip in this project. Thank you. So I will invite Prof. Diego, and then Jane, and then Tony Wong as the last speaker. Time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Bu Reni. Assalamualaikum everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. It's very nice to see some familiar faces again. Thank you very much for the invitation. We are very grateful and delighted to be here today. I am wanting to, I guess, echo what Reni just said about our long-standing collaboration with Universitas Indonesia, and in particular acknowledge Reni's very significant contribution, and also Dr. Dwinanti Martanti, who's on the call here. In our collaboration has been enduring and very productive. So in some way, you should be presenting with us today, but anyway, maybe next time. Okay, so today, as has been said, we are going to be focusing on about 2.5 years of discussion and getting started on a really long-term project, a decade, we think, or more, a generational project of revitalizing the Citarum River, and focusing in, I guess, today through the filter of the COP26 conference. And COP26 is, well, the COP conference is, of course, the climate change conference is held yearly. And I think this is particularly fitting. So the COP26 goals, there are 4 main goals, but goal number 2 is to adapt to protect communities and natural habitats. So that's goal number 2. And goal number 4 is that we must work together to deliver. So I think those 2 goals fit very well with what we would like to present today, which is the notion of integrated waste management of the Citarum River. I'd also like to acknowledge a number of other partners that that Reni mentioned earlier, and to say that this work, this important work, must be transdisciplinary in nature. That means bringing together different disciplines, different partners from different sectors, governments, private sector, the not-for-profit sector, and hopefully what we show today exemplifies some of these principles and approaches. Next, Tony, thanks. Okay, so I suppose the title of the governor's speech for COP26 was really focusing, I guess, or the theme, the overall theme was focusing on plastic. But in terms of waste, there are, we believe, some significant waste streams that need to be dealt with, and of course, what we're talking about is dealing with them in an integrated manner. So every day, about 20,000 tons of solid waste go into the river, and about 340,000 tons of wastewater are disposed into the river. So plastic, in this case, in fact, represents really about only 13% of all solid waste. So it's, even though it's probably the most visible problem because plastic floats and it's a really apparent problem, all the different waste streams are impacting the river in a range of ways. So in solid waste, not only plastic, but also organic solids are a really significant problem. And in liquid waste, we are talking here really about sewage in the Citarum, particularly in the upper Citarum, the industrial effluent, and of course the agricultural runoff. Next slide, please. So what we've been looking at, and we know is a significant issue, are the sources of pollution, and some of the initiatives that have been longstanding, in some ways well-known, accepted solutions are about dealing with pollution sources such as sewage and sewage management. So eliminating open defecation, improving effluent quality from wastewater treatment facilities and sewage treatment plants. Again, industrial effluent management. So having to license discharges and incentivizing pollution abatement. This is really key for industry. Planning around concepts of industrial ecology. And Professor Tony Wong will speak a little bit more about that also. And then importantly, agricultural runoff. So promoting best practice water and waste management in agricultural practices. Next, please. So solid waste, as we were saying before, is a complex problem. It's a complex social problem as much as it is a material problem, as it were. So it needs to incorporate community behavior and behavior change, which promotes recycling through local and regional recycling facilities. Of course, pollution abatement interventions, solid waste traps, a range of different physical technology interventions, and of course, which is underway, hopefully, the elimination of single-use plastics. So that's a policy intervention. Next. So in order to do this, there are different scales, and at a large, what we're calling industrial scale, we need to incentivize, I guess, these different solutions, and really what we're talking about here is enabling a circular economy or recycling. That is ensuring that the waste is somehow, in different ways, turned into a resource. So what we mean by that is water supply and sewage reticulation infrastructure can do that. Networked solid waste management schemes can do that. It can be done through planning policy for enabling designated industrial precincts, and policies on industrial discharge licensing, and policy on eliminating of single-use plastics. Next. However, at a smaller scale, at what we're calling community, at the community scale, we need to make sure that no one is left behind. At a very large scale, there can be industrial solutions, large scale solutions, but then the community solutions, ensuring that local communities are included, where resources are kept in community, is what we're particularly interested in, and what we're, I guess, addressing with our Citarum Revitalization Demonstration Project. In this case, we're looking at behavior change programs, so provide in service delivery, which eliminates open defecation, which improves effluent quality from wastewater treatment facilities, and this can be decentralized facilities, nature-based solutions. We're looking at agricultural waste, so promoting best agricultural practices in water and waste management, and then promoting community-based solid waste management, again at a community level. And we understand there are large programs, a very large solid waste program, for example, with a $100 million World Bank loan recently. And so what we're looking at is the other end of the scale, the community development scale, and development solutions for that scale. Next. So the work that we've been doing is founded on basically two key principles or concepts. Next. The first of those is the principle of planetary health. And planetary health is effectively first of all, a solution-oriented transdisciplinary field which focuses on analyzing and addressing the impacts of human disruption to Earth's natural systems on human life and all life on Earth. So in effect, the interconnections between environment and human and biodiversity health. And the second concept that we're really using, as I mentioned before, is that of circular economy. And in the circular economy, really, it's a model of production and consumption, which involves sharing, leasing, reusing, repairing, refurbishing, recycling existing materials and products, as long as possible in a system that is restorative or regenerative by intention and design, and where waste is converted into resource. Next. So how do we operationalize these interventions? We are firm believers that these complex socio-technical solutions, which require innovations on both a technical level and a social level, are really best dealt with at through demonstration and pilots of these solutions, these socio-technical solutions, which are demonstrating, again, the community-driven development and these innovations in circular economy in waste management. Now, we've been doing some of this work already for some years now in the city of Makassar in South Sulawesi, where we've been doing village scale interventions, mainly focusing on water management. But in this case, what we're talking about is really developing demonstrations which integrate solid waste management with safe sanitation and fit for purpose water supply and drainage and flood mitigation. Next. And in order to do this, we, of course, as mentioned earlier, need to incentivize communities, incentivize industry. And this is where the concept of circular economy really comes in. So developing, for example, the reuse of local treated wastewater effluent to support local industry in horticulture or agriculture enterprises. So the recycling of glass and plastics, creating new enterprises, for example, for construction materials, building materials, the recycling of organic waste, organic waste management, creating green products and services, for example, compost, for example, black soldier fly, livestock feed, and off-grid energy. And very important, restoring natural environments to attract ecotourism, and the notion of actually bringing in income generation through bringing people to a location that is attractive and has high amenity. Next. So as I mentioned, this can be done needs to be done, and we're doing it through a range of partners. And this is really my colleague Jane Holden's area of expertise, and I'll hand over to Jane. Thank you.
Thank you, Diego. Can I just double check that I can be heard? Yep, okay. So in developing the integrated solutions for a pilot scale demonstration, we recognise that this requires multiple disciplines and multiple stakeholders to come together to share knowledge, to find new ways to learn from each other, that enable innovation. So it's only through the adaptation of collective knowledge from across our partner organisations can social and technical innovations be developed together that will tackle all sources of waste that are generated from different land uses in a place-based demonstration. As you can see from this huge list of logos, our partnership network is well developed and is developing. We have partners across Indonesia, University of Indonesia, UNPAD, ITB, UPI, of course the West Java government. We're also engaging with new partners in Australia, with CSIRO in the Plastics Waste Innovation Hub, and also EWAG in Switzerland, which is an aquatic research centre. And also in Warwick University in the UK, we've been working with the International Global Sustainable Development Institute on looking at some of their work in Africa, African countries, and Latin America, working with communities. So this immense knowledge network is bringing together many disciplines across civil and environmental engineering, urban design and architecture, social and behavioural science, political science and law, sustainable development, and climate science. Next. This has been a catalyst for establishing a type of living laboratory in the Upper Chidiram watershed, which is a real-life learning ecosystem where all these actors can come together to design and conduct small-scale experiments that test our approaches and measure their impact on the environment and on the local community. So research and partnerships together play a critical role in creating new evidence for sustainable transformation of degraded river systems. And the proposed living laboratory in the Chidiram watershed will also act to build enduring partnerships that will lay the foundation for upscaling the integrated approach across the catchment and also indeed to other rivers in Indonesia and Southeast Asia. Next. However, we also recognise that to be successful in designing and implementing a place-based solution for transforming the river, we must involve the community. The community has a deep understanding of the environment in which they live, the hazards of climate change, and the local issues of land and water systems. Community-driven approaches aim to harness this local wisdom. It listens to the aspirations of the local people, their need for infrastructure, and their vision for a future development of their natural and built environment. Community-driven approaches also build local capacity for designing, building and operating multifunctional infrastructure. It can include behaviour, local governance, and sustainable circular business models that enable the creation of new green jobs, products and services that aim to keep the value of waste within the community. Next. So now I'd like to pass to Professor Tony Wong, who will talk to you more about the Ecological Corridor Revitalisation Master Plan. Thanks, Tony.
Thank you, Jane. And selamat siang, everyone. When Professor Diego first introduced this presentation, he made reference to COP26 and particularly the speech that the governor is going to make in relation to integrated waste management. And we immediately make the point that it is really important for the governor to make this point that it's not just plastic that we need to deal with, it's a wide range of waste. Because once it gets into the river, you find that there is you can hardly differentiate them. They're all waste and they're all creating pollution. Professor Diego then made the point that environmental pollution, whether it be liquid waste or solid waste, have a direct impact on the health of the community. It also impacts on their well-being. And he further made the point that there are already many initiatives that government are looking at to promote safer sanitation, to promote citywide solid waste management and circular economy. But we make the point that there will always be a section of the community that will be left behind if we do not think about what would complement those initiatives with community-driven initiatives. And this is the focus of what we're doing. But when we focus on that, we are also very cognizant that maintaining and boosting the economic well-being of those inhabitants, of those communities, are just as important as trying to improve their health. And so we have approached this by making sure that the work we do promote a healthy microeconomy, while at the same time promote their health and well-being through better management of the environment. To do this and to set up this context on how we would operationalize those principles, we have used the Chitarik River Corridor as our example, as our living laboratory. The first thing we did was then to look at what would be the broad ecological master plan vision that we want to have with which we would drive our activity. And so we, through a series of workshops, have first come up with the ecological corridor master plan for the Chitarik section, which you can see on your screen. And we base the development of the master plan on 5 key principles. The importance to promote and grow the local microeconomy to support the economic sustainability and well-being of those communities. To support solid waste services for the villages and local agricultural industry. And in that, start to look at delivering a cleaner waterway. To support waterway and terrestrial landscape restoration, to bring back ecology into the river, to bring back biodiversity into the river, to improve water, wastewater, and sanitation services for the villages, to remove pollution of sewage into the waterway. And finally, to strengthen the climate change mitigation and adaptation strategy. So they were the 5 principles with which we developed this master plan. And the master plan is really based on 5 key initiatives. The first, of course, is about the rehabilitation of the riparian corridor of the waterways. How do we improve the waterways to create a new ecologically healthy habitats that supports greater biodiversity? How do we do that and not reduce its flood conveyance capacity? How do we convert oxbow systems, oxbow lakes, into healthy waterways that are now part of the landscape? They are the first landscape strategy that we put together in relation to the rehabilitation of the waterway corridors. The other 4 strategies consist of a forest restoration and nature-based recreation to commence the building block of maintaining or creating new microeconomies for the community. The third is to continue to support productive landscape, but to ensure that they become features of ecotourism. They promote sustainable practices and perhaps even unique practices that enable a circular economy of recycling organic waste that's been created. The 4th in our ecological landscape master plan is to how do we insert or embed urban biomimicry of nature-based solutions into the urban centers. And finally, the 5th is how do you introduce regional flood management, water quality improvement, and habitat water bodies to create a natural environment that will also become an attractive point as an ecotourism destination. To do this, we have identified that the area to the west, we will have a strategy over some period of time of reforestation and creating a recreational area around a forest and a waterway environment. The second is about productive landscapes, and we are thinking of 4 different types of productive landscapes. Sustainable livestock farming, utilizing the paddy fields, but actually delivering a different product that creates an iconic feature for the area that becomes a point of attraction for ecotourism without losing the productive capacity of the land that is affected by that. The creation of organic farms, whereby we can demonstrate how we can grow high value produce with natural fertilizers using recycled organic waste as fertilizers rather than artificial fertilizers, and to also promote water conservation to prevent any agricultural runoff from discharging into the waterway, but to reuse that within the farming activity. And of course, to introduce aquaculture. And through the combination of organic farm and aquaculture, to create a restaurant precinct, a food precinct that is based around high value organic produce and high value aquaculture. All of that, if designed well, will promote the progressive improvement of the water quality in the waterways. The fourth is about introducing water-sensitive urban design into the urban areas. They are there to create buffers to make sure that the urban area do not pollute the waterway. Those buffers could be about stormwater quality improvement. It would be about safe sanitation services, gray water treatment from households, and also to introduce urban forest that creates microclimate that would cool the settlements, cool those urban areas with the expectation that climate change is going to create more urban heat in future. And finally, an area is to be set aside for flood management, flood protection, but in the process of doing that, create regional wetlands that are also delivering better habitats for greater biodiversity. And again, there could be point of ecotourism by building visitation platforms, viewing areas that allows visitors to enjoy the natural habitats of wetlands. And so within this very simple 5 strategies, we can create for this corridor a destination for ecological tourism, but at the same time deliver ecological outputs, ecosystem services that would improve the quality of the river and also improve the health of the people that live in this corridor. And of course, as we move from that master plan, we identify what is it that we can do immediately, and how in what we do immediately can we inform how we can upscale these interventions and initiatives, and also how we can actually address the broader issues that are actually mentioned in COP26, is how do you enable community-based activities, adapt those communities to be more resilient to future climate change, but also address an immediate issue about waterway pollution. It's not just about plastic, but plastic is part of that problem. And of course, the things that we would do is to prioritize waterway rehabilitation, commence engagement with community to look at co-designing some of these initiatives, looking at piloting a local circular economy, and to commence waste management education in that. And on that note, I also like to just now basically talk about what do we mean by local circular economy. This is a typical breakdown of all the solid waste that is generated from a typical urban settlement. Separation of that waste allows us to look at how organic waste can be used to be recycled to produce feedstock for food and for fish. So we can use that to create a sustainable livestock farming practice, livestock farming industry within the corridor, and also promote aquaculture within that. So the relationship of organic waste and some of these productive activities can then create the type of economy that we would like the local community to enjoy. At another scale, with the inorganic waste, of course, plastic recycling, and we want to see if in fact the corridor here provides us with a critical mass of people and demand that would justify the introduction of local plastic recycling. We actually don't know if in fact that is the case, but at the very least, we would want to look at the incentive for the community to separate their waste, because waste separation is the first step to every circular economy solution that we have. We have also had experience, and this is in Penang in Malaysia, whereby organic waste have been used to generate biogas and energy from there. And we are also wanting to explore if, in fact, there is the size of the community is enough and the amount of organic waste generated is sufficient to support a local energy production scheme. And finally, some of the early things we would do is, of course, to promote, understand what sustainable livestock farming means, and also to commence the reforestation strategy. So what we're trying to do with the work we've done, which is of relevant to the governor's speech at COP36, is the importance of resetting some fundamental practices to introduce innovation. The government has spent a significant amount of money to clean up the Citarum, the annual cleanup campaign, and we would argue that that is simply addressing the symptoms of the problem. The problem is waste generation at the source, and that we have to concurrently commence work, which we are doing now, to pilot key initiatives to foster a fundamental reset of the social technical framework for guiding actions for improving the ecological health of the Citarum. What that means is demonstrating and upscaling the initiatives that I've just talked about. This is framed by the concept of planetary health and circular economy and captured within a landscape master plan. The landscape master plan becomes, if you like, the blueprint for us to move forward with activities, perhaps for the next 20 years in this Chitterick section. Policies and incentive for pollution abatement is what we're going to try. Looking at solid waste management as a resource, looking at sewage management and the protection of water resources, both in terms of water supply and, of course, the water in our river. Creation of ecotourism, setting around sustainable and resilient environmental practices. And what that means is that that will then create and maintain a local economy for the community. And of course, piloting them, delivering the proof of concept, and then undertaking the research on what we will need to do to upscale those practices. So my last two slides is what are the key messages that we like to leave with you that perhaps the governor could consider when he is writing his speech at COP36. And there are 6 key messages that we want to leave with you. The first, of course, is that combating marine plastic litter, which is the main theme of that session, involves global actions, and Indonesia have a very important role to play with that. It involves global actions of social technical initiatives encompassing policy, behavior change, regional infrastructure that supports recycling. But we need to make the point that plastic is only one of a multitude of pollutants that is choking our waterway, that's creating damage in our ecology, and in that way, impacting on the population health of the inhabitants in the waterway corridor. So we really need to make a point that you cannot just say, let's deal with plastic, we have to deal with the total waste. And therefore, which is what the governor was making the point, a holistic approach is required, involving engaging industry, government, and communities to concurrently address all waste discharged into our nation's waterways. And therefore, an integrated approach incorporating land use planning, water-sensitive land use practices, infrastructure planning is required. But within that context, we make the point that many of these initiatives you hear everywhere in the world. Every government is talking about circular economy, pollution reduction, and many of them are delivering solutions at a centralized whole of city scale. Many, and Indonesia included, are building many network sewage systems, are creating major recycling of plastics and having great solid waste management system. But our experience is that in that case, there will still be many communities that will not benefit from those infrastructure. And therefore, in leaving no one behind, there is an urgency in identifying solutions that complement these conventional centralized solutions of water management and circular economy that can be implemented in communities not serviced by those infrastructure. And the Chitram Revitalization Demonstration Project is focused on finding solutions that would help those communities. It is in integrating the approach of waste management to revitalize communities along the Chitram corridor, the Chitram and its tributary corridors. And the ecological landscape master plan that we have developed is used to help frame how we would operationalize those community level, community-based development, initially through the steps of piloting and demonstrating innovations in community protection from water hazards, whether it's water quality, whether it's floods, whether it's poor drinking water, waterborne diseases, protecting and restoring the ecological health of the water environment, and community-based circular economy in waste management. And so that complements a lot of the big infrastructure, industrial scale infrastructure that everybody in the world is trying to do to address this issue of waste and planetary health. Thank you for your attention. I'd like to pass that on now back to Ibu Reni.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony Diego Jane, for clear, significant key messages. I highly appreciate the way you guys presenting the paper with the COP26 as a context, then founding principles, and then come up with different innovations that I assume is needed by the community and other stakeholders. And thank you for the key messages, ideas for Pak Ridwan Kamil's speech for COP26. Once again, I want to welcoming the head and all the representative of the OPD and offices from all the 27 Kabupaten Kota, district and cities in West Java. This is a very rare occasions that all the people come in one occasions like this. I appreciate, thanks for coming. And now I think we have only a short time to have a discussions, but it's already 6 discussions here. Regional Research and Development Agency of West Java, and then Regional Development and Planning Agency of West Java, Energy and Mineral Resources Office of West Java, Environment Agency of West Java, Housing and Settlement Office, and Citarum Harum Task Force, of course, they all West Java province. Bapak, is there, should I call them all or one by one? And probably each discussions only have 1 or 2 minutes, because if we want to stop at 2 o'clock, so the windows is so only short. Bapak Ibu, please camera on the discussions, or raise your hand, or a chat, maybe write a chat. Is there any? Yeah, hang on. Any questions? Bapak Ibu, anyone want to raise a questions or comment or response from Bapeda from task force? Nope. Or probably I will change the game. Yeah, sorry, organizer. Is it okay if we talk in Bahasa? Or do you think this issue is not interesting or not significant?
Perhaps
I
in
got
Bahasa,
this I got these 6 discussions from the organizer. I thought they already prepare questions, but not yet. So, Bapak Ibu ada yang mau bertanya? Well, no one raised their hand and no on the chat room. So probably I will ask. I will ask the questions then. Can we discuss about lesson learned from Yara River? Because in the beginning, Pak Dodit mentioned a little bit about Yara River. I mean, is there similarities or significance experience from Yara that we can learn and implement for Citarum River? Thanks.
The Yarra River has in the past had its problems with a lot of solid waste pollution as well. But over a long period of time, you find that improvement in solid waste management and also the introductions of traps in major drainage outlets to the river has that have helped reduce the solid waste. But in terms of the water quality of the Yarra River, there's still a lot of work that Melbourne needs to do to ensure that, for instance, the river is swimmable. The Yarra River at the moment is not swimmable. You will get sick if you swim in the Yarra River. I think the point, I did make a point in the previous speech when we compare, for instance, the program for the Citarum against the program of the Singapore River or for the Ganges River and the amount of investment that needs to be going there, that the cleanup of the Citarum is a long-term strategy. But the point I wish to make is that cleaning up the Citarum is not just about going to the Citarum and taking the rubbish out. You can never win that situation. You have to introduce better catchment management, and catchment management in the highly urban area is very well managed, often by good infrastructure, as I often call it, the infrastructure for the growing middle class. But there will always be the section that is poorly managed. And what we are trying to do is to provide a non-network solution, a non-centralized infrastructure solution for many of the villages that will be along the tributaries and the waterway of the Citarum. And if you don't address that, you will find that you will still continue to have that problem no matter how much money you want to spend in the city of Bandung or in cleaning up. So I think that's the experience we learned from not just the Yarra River, the experience we learned from the Singapore River, the Ganges in India as well.
Well, thanks, Tony. I think, you know what, after we study, although it's only preliminary research, these 2 years, we already have many informations and data about Citarum River, the complex issues of the river. do you have confidence? Do you confidence enough that we can revitalize the river? Because some of us, I mean, from Indonesian's part, sometimes we are a bit frustrations because it's already years. There's many works already have been done for cleaning the river, but the result has not yet as expected. So, what do you think? Are you confident enough?
Well,
If we work with different
I-
method like this, you know, with,
I'm
yeah,
confident.
please.
I'm confident that with the governor, who has a strong vision, I'm confident that there is the political will to do that. But I also need to say that many of the impediments are institutional impediments of policy, people's behavior, historic land use planning. So the transition has got to be over a time frame. Things cannot happen overnight. But if you don't do it, then you will continue to spend more and more money just doing the cleanup. Because you can clean up today, but if you have a big storm tomorrow, it will all come back. So I think the current governor of West Java, as I understand and have read some of his speeches, that he has got the vision to do it. And it does require political leadership to do that.
Thanks, Tony. How's about you, Diego and Jane? Are you confident enough?
Yeah, I mean, I remain, I mean, positive that there is what I've seen from engaging with the West Java government and with communities and with the not-for-profit sectors to date is that there is some very, very good strategies in place already and very goodwill to revitalize the river. So I think in some way, for me, it's like almost like connecting the dots that are already there. And that's why it's so important to have a catalyst project that shows everyone can see how you connect the dots, because it's not easy. So I'm confident that that the dots are there for us to connect, and that's a really good place to be. The other thing to say is that, I mean, maybe going back to the Yara, that took a generation. It took 25 years. And so, you know, I think we have to be realistic that these very significant problems, I mean, we would love to see a clean river in 5 years. I think that is probably going to be difficult, especially in the governor's, time in office. But I think absolutely we can make a very good start, and it's about setting those examples, setting those pathways. And as Tony's saying, ultimately, really getting at policy is the ultimate goal. But we need to, I think, through demonstration of connecting those dots. Thank you.
Thank you, Diego. Well, in the chat room, we have questions from Bapak Yogantara. So I will read the questions. As a part of grassroots, to see how the community-based driven development will be processed and realized. And I'm interested to also hear your comment on military involvement in Citarum Restoration Program. We know that Pak Dedi, the General Dedi, when he visited us in Australia, in Melbourne, and also Pak Yusuf when we visit Citarum before pandemic, you know. So any comment? The military involvement in Citarum. So probably Ibu Jane, yes, it's your turn. Thanks.
Thank you, Bereni. Yeah, look, I'd like to sort of respond to that, you know, really interesting comment, and also perhaps in some ways touching on the next one too about tiny steps, and also coming back to what Diego was saying about it requires everyone, and we need to have a long-term plan. which is what we've presented today, is that longer term master plan. We're not going to be able to deliver it all in the next 5 years, but we need to seed it and we need to start it. And everyone has a role to play, the community especially, because it's where they live, it's where they live, it's where they work, it's where their children are educated, it's where you buy food and you interact with the local industries. So when we say community, it's all of that. It's not just the households, it's the local industries that are there as well, the farmers, the crop growers, the livestock owners. The military have played an incredible role in cleaning up the river. They have the access to big machines and lots of deploy people to make an impact. And while we know that they're not going to be able to do that long term, they have had an effect. And we've been into the Chitteram and we've seen the work that they're doing, and their engagement with community has been, amazing. Like that wouldn't happen in Australia in that sense. So they've had a role to play. The NGOs have a role to play as well. Even the schools and the educators of the next generation have a role to play. And so there's all these small steps that we need to seed so that together over the next 10 to 20 years, we can see improvements. We might not see improvements for the first few years. You'd want to be seeing improvements gradually as the actions that we take have impact.
Thank you, Ibu Jane. We have 2 minutes left. I think I would like to invite Ibu Anti. Ibu Anti is here, Dr. Dwi Nanti from Engineering Faculty, University of Indonesia. Ibu Anti and I already have long-term work for research. We are the duo of the engineering and social science. Ibu Anti, are you there? Would you begin to say something? Maybe lesson learned from.
Recording in progress. Intent, LOI. So we can share we can say that we have a strong start for to give our commitments to the works of Citarum, like Prof. Tony and Prof. Yeager and also Ibu Jane mentioned earlier. So thank you, Ibu Reni.
Sorry. Thank you, Ibu Anti. We only 1 minute left. Maybe we can have group picture. But I think as a conclusion, to be frank, a bit tired talking in English. So may I speak in bahasa? Bapak Ibu hadirin, terima kasih banyak sudah hadir di diskusi ini. Kami mengundang Bapak Ibu untuk kita mengadakan diskusi lagi, tetapi saya ingin mengundang dari perspektif Universitas Indonesia, sehingga ingin kembali menjelaskan, tetapi dalam bahasa Indonesia. Karena saya lihat di sini Bapak Ibu malu-malu atau mungkin memang lagi super sibuk, tetapi saya percaya bahwa isu ini, topik ini sangat penting. Memang kali ini usulan atau inspiring untuk nanti Pak Gubernur Ridwan Kamil memberikan pidato di Glasgow di COP26. Tetapi mungkin besok-besok kita bisa ketemu untuk yang kerja lebih konkret seperti itu. Tadi Ibu Jane sudah memberikan email, bisa langsung kontak. Pak Tony dan Pak Diego sangat terbuka untuk mendapatkan input atau untuk memberikan saran. Mereka bertiga sangat familiar dengan Indonesia, punya pekerjaan dan punya riset tidak hanya di Jawa Barat, tetapi sudah pernah sukses di Sulawesi Selatan, seperti yang tadi disampaikan. Sukses juga waktu kita punya riset applied research di Kota Bogor, di Bogor City, dan kemudian ketika diundang oleh Pak Ridwan Kamil untuk scale up ke level provinsi, nah inilah kami. Kami siap untuk membantu Bapak Ibu. Poin yang terakhir, stressingnya adalah membersihkan Citarum dengan program revitalisasi, sukses apabila kita bekerja bersama multi stakeholder dan multidisiplin ilmu. Tidak hanya dari engineering, tetapi juga dari sosial. Tidak hanya bicara mengenai matematika, tetapi bicara mengenai culture, mengenai budaya. Ini bukan pekerjaannya akademisi, bukan pekerjaannya komunitas saja, LSM saja, media saja, atau pemerintah saja. Tetapi kita semua bersama-sama berkontribusi sehingga Citarum yang kita cintai, yang kita hidup dari Citarum, bisa bersih, sama seperti sungai-sungai lain, sama seperti Yarra River di Melbourne, sama seperti di Singapura, di Prancis, di Inggris, ataupun negara-negara lain yang 1-2 generasi sebelumnya sama kotornya dan sama polusinya dengan Citarum kita. Nuhun Bapak Ibu, dan sekarang terakhir boleh group picture, saya serahkan kembali kepada organizer. Thank you so much. For Jane, Diego, and Tony, I will translate it later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Bu Reni.
Thank you very much.
Group picture, please. Don't laugh. Admin, please.
Thank you very much, Ibu Reni, Pak Diego, and Pak Tony, Bu Jane. Pak Dodi has left, he has to go. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will have group picture.
Thank you.
Sama Atta aja.
Ladies and gentlemen, please, we will have group picture in 1, 2, 3. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Terima kasih Bapak Ibu.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much. So see you later on. Bye-bye.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe. Bye.
Bye.
Assalamualaikum Bapak Ibu. Terima kasih sudah hadir. Selamat siang. Salam sehat.
Waalaikumsalam.
Ini